Hello to you from Abu Dhabi in the United Arab Emirates, right on the front line of the economic war in the Middle East conflict.
The impact is being felt thousands of miles away. Shortages of oil and gas have triggered protests in India and rationing in Bangladesh. There are long lineups for fuel from Pakistan to Cambodia to Vietnam. Sri Lanka shortened work weeks to save electricity, and Thailand's news anchors ditched their suit jackets to avoid using air conditioning.
Energy emergency.
The largest supply disruption in the history of the global oil market. It's made Asia ground zero for an energy crisis that threatens to cripple an entire continent.
Have you ever heard of the word fearmongering?
Yeah, a lot of times. But it was like, I have just heard. I haven't gone into the word and researched about the word.
What do you think it means?
Kind of like making people anxious for something. For no reason, kind of.
Yeah, so there's elements of that. Like fearmongering is largely it's a really difficult word to put into any correct definition. Fear is the oldest sort of big emotion that humanity remembers. Like if you were to think about how we were hundreds of thousands of years ago, since the species, even before we were humans, we knew what fear was, because it's a thing. It's death. It's any kind of natural occurrence that is outside of human control that always can lead to a very sudden change that the person doesn't want. So fearmongering is basically, over the ages, fearmongering is when society forms and creates these intricate structures of villages and cities and then now countries. Fearmongering is how you get people on your side and also how you create otherness. The fact of someone saying your people automatically makes everyone who's not included in that other people. Fearmongering is basically taking a problem and making people afraid of it unnecessarily. The more it compounds, the more people will talk about it more. And the thing with fearmongering is it's associated with anonymity. So anonymity in the sense that there's this thing, a concept called the safety of a mob. Think about a situation where someone's booing someone. People boo people in crowds. If you don't like things, and people clap in crowds too. So it can go positively as well. It's kind of like when a meeting ends and someone starts clapping and everyone claps. It's basically that. The safety of a mob is you don't know who started it, because you can vaguely guess who started it, but you can't ever figure it out. And that's what the internet does. And it's a perfect breeding ground for things like fearmongering. It's almost exclusively sort of used for social discourse. And because it's easy to make people afraid of something, it's meant to make people afraid of some bad thing happening to them or the people that they consider theirs. And it doesn't even have to have a creed or religion or anything like that. It can just be people versus AI. It could be something like that. But the issue of fearmongering is that it simplifies the entire landscape of the problem. Can you think of a few examples of fearmongering that you've seen?
I can remember the most widely known and widely experienced ones are COVID, and recently it was hantavirus thing that we were really scared about it. There were reasons to be scared, but I think there are instances where the government and other people care the people more for some reason. And locally, maybe Aragalaya can be a thing, if I'm right. Yeah, things like that.
I mean, yeah, so fearmongering, because it's such a vague term to describe something, is like it can be used for good and evil. It's just that it's used often for attention, and that's usually associated with bad things. Like Aragale is a very good example of it happening, and then parts of it becoming very healthy for the country, like healthy for the community, where the us and the them was so big. Like the them of that us was like very, very small, because they were just the ministers, just the very wealthy 1%. That's kind of already a thing in society. Like even if you look at society outside of Sri Lanka, ultra wealthy, ultra powerful people are often like a them that isn't included in the us of common people. So Aragale is very much like a practical application of that. And I think fearmongering was used in that time, but like it was done in a way that rallied people towards a cause that was actually ultimately helpful. But what I wanted to touch upon is that like something more, a little more topical. US President Donald Trump decided to go attack and invade Iran under the pretense of them having nuclear research and nuclear weapons. The most recent example that I've seen for fearmongering is also this way, like, because it's a political party, the Republicans in America, trying to basically instill fear within their camp and use it as justification for a completely different sort of like global terraforming. Like they're not necessarily even doing a war, they're invading a country to cease operations. So they did a test run with Venezuela, and then now they're doing more or less like a actual run with Iran. And I mean, the retaliation is there, therefore it's a war, but like the war was unprompted entirely. Like it's like beating someone up in the street who was walking by. Like it's very unjustified if you actually look into it. But yeah, like the pretense is that Iran is dangerous to them. Like that's the MO of the entire conflict. But because of that conflict, there's a lot of fearmongering that is being done in Europe and Asia. It's mostly like, because the Iranian like Strait controls a lot of the shipping, it's a very dire situation because the entirety of the world functions on inertia. Like these days, definitely, like stuff needs to keep moving. No one is stocking things up. Things need to be shipped and things need to be on the move consistently. So if a ship stops one day,
yeah, I just heard about the fuel situation also. It's very similar to this. Like all of the South Asian and even Singapore is kind of struggling with fuel because of the.
It's a disruption. It's not necessarily that they've said there's no fuel. It's just like it's not a lack of resource. It's a disruption in the sort of logistics of it. And the thing is, the world operates on logistics. If something like that stops, the whole world stops. Like it's just like the whole world has to like wait for them to figure things out and then resume. And until then, we are basically scrounging. Like any country that has like extra reserves are most likely, for one thing, in Sri Lanka, we don't have the land mass for extra reserves. And especially even countries like Singapore, they don't have the land mass for extra reserves either. They just have money. So like the only realistic way for it to actually occur is you have to have a consistent shipping lane that's always shipping. Like it comes to ports, gives the fuel and then leaves. A global network that functions and serves the entire globe. And when something happens to it, it's a really big problem. Like I've heard this analogy a few times, like paying attention to what America does is like like a necessity, because America is like Godzilla, and if you lived in the city that Godzilla attacks, you would probably want to look at Godzilla at all times. It doesn't matter whether you're being attacked or not. Something's gonna happen to you if Godzilla's in your city. Like, there is a reality to it. Then there's like something that's being blown out of proportion to it. And then there's also this extra layer. A certain political party wants people to think about it like this. Barring that, they want their supporters to justify the war. They want people in the age of the internet basically go to bat for them, to defend the actions of a political party on their own. Like, a good example is like when there's a discussion happening on the internet, and someone brings up that the war is unjustified and the fuel crisis is like the fault of this particularly powerful class of people who have decided to go to war. It's like always a thing where like there are people in the comments of those videos who will justify the war despite not having any connection to it. Like they might be living in middle America who don't have a fuel crisis right now, who don't really necessarily care about the fuel, or they might be above a certain class of society that doesn't mind the fuel price going up a little bit. And the irony is they're defending people who are actively harming the world, and they're only doing it because they're in a camp of people who control an us and a them. It's hard to go against your camp, is what it is. Have you ever noticed whenever there's a problem, whenever there's like a natural disaster or like a global crisis or a non-global local crisis, or some political thing happened, or even if there's like a long weekend, the water in every supermarket goes missing. Like, especially if you live, like, the water just goes missing. And that is like it's an indicative thing of a bigger problem. Like when the floods happened last year, and I think we can find statistics for this to show as well, because like the water in supermarkets were just gone. And the irony is, it's not gone to give to people who require it, like assistance. It's bought up by the people who can afford water and already have water. It's kind of like people in furnished, fully like running water apartments will buy like 60 gallons of water, fix 60 liters of water just to keep in their apartment till the crisis ends. And then after that, a lot of the time they won't even use it. Like, I've seen people have jugs of like those 5-liter jugs of water, like the giant bottles of water, like under their kitchen thingy. And like they were like, oh, we bought this during the flood, and it's still not over because they bought like 70 liters of it, because like it's just like a bunch of jugs of water. Like, the government legally tells you to have like 2 weeks of water as a precautionary method, but this is like 6 months of water. Like, you don't need this much water, like just to have the other people need the same amount essentially.
And it's weird because it's like we are in a tropical country, and if you can't find water in a place where you don't experience flood, obviously you can easily find it in nature. If you have a well or something, it will be there. If it's like a desert area, yes, but I don't think the way Sri Lankan people react is a bit excessive because of the fearmongering that happens through media.
Another thing about Sri Lankan media is that we can actually pretty much pinpoint the fact that they do not have the legislative rules to keep them from doing this fearmongering. Because if you look at the Sri Lankan YouTube channels, this is not a Sri Lanka problem. This is like, I've seen Fox News do this, but then again, like, there are channels everywhere in the world that like prioritize attention over news, like news channels that prioritize attention over news. And that's a big gripe of mine as well. But the thing is, in Sri Lanka, I think people almost like definitively every single media channel that is like significantly bigger. Uniquely, I think in Sri Lanka, the best way to get information is to look at the social journalism that happens, like with people who are individual journalists who go out of their way to have a Twitter or have a Facebook or have some sort of way to interact with people who give you the information. That's actually one of the better ways in Sri Lanka, because the country is so small. If something that just affects Sri Lankans happens, I think that's a better way to interface with it, because the media itself is almost definitively built on fear mongering. Like they kind of bombard you with unnecessary information constantly when there's a crisis, in the hopes that it grows their cap of how much the information, like how many people watch their channel or how many people subscribe to their channel or whatever. Like they treat it as an act of like marketing more than anything. Like even when there's a national disaster going on, they treat it like a little bit like that. And I'm not saying they don't do a service, of course, like they absolutely do a service, but it's like the service is, people have their own opinions about it. Like some people will be like, oh, don't trust Sirius, don't trust some channel, don't trust Hero, whatever. But the thing is, like, those opinions are built off of experience, or of like them trying to find information and either the channel reporting it later, or reporting false information, or reporting exaggerated information that caused something. So people will always like say, oh, this channel is more biased to this political party, and that's just true. Like, I think a good way to manage this, there's a number of news alert apps like that are like Watchdog, or even like a more international one is Ground News. And it's kind of like, I mean, it's important to filter those stories out. But do you remember, like, before COVID happened, the world was very different. Like, it was very, there was a layer of sort of like, it was almost like people were living their lives and global events were happening a layer above them, but it didn't directly affect them.
I think personally, I was in like a era where there's a big transition is happening as a person. So like schooling and after schooling, in the middle, how it happened. So for me personally, it's a very big change, but the things that I have seen in internet, like a lot of people in my age had the same experience. It's like you are living with kind of like with the community of your people, and after that, a lot of I think a lot of lives has changed. Even though it's like normally as Sri Lankans, we are not out there. We are as an example, like if we have a job in the country normally, like if you're doing an international job, even it's in the country, like you have your people around you. And normally the thing that's happening internationally does not affect us directly, but COVID is very different. And I think even the way we think and way we operate, obviously the way we study, we learn, the way we have our jobs, everything just changed completely. And I would say it's like now we have this millennial Gen Z era for generations, but I think after COVID was also like a very different era that we experienced, and now we are living in that era, which is very, I would say it's connected internationally, globally, but also disconnected from the parties that are very close to us.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's a very interesting take, because I think, well, yeah, I think I feel similarly, because I also was going through a pretty big change as a person, because I was just getting into university, and that was like when I was first allowed to be more or less alone by myself in a city that I wasn't familiar with, like that sort of thing. Before the pandemic, a lot of crises were they were like localized, and they were localized since I think we've been alive, basically. I don't think we've ever experienced a crisis that was like on a global scale until COVID happened. Like that was, at least in my life, the biggest like biggest social and societal event that I've experienced technically, even though it didn't affect like Sri Lanka in a way that is like, it didn't really collapse Sri Lanka in a way that with the financial crisis did that, but like COVID was kind of the snowball rolling, like the start of the snowball rolling, where the internet went from being a tool that people just had fun on. People all over the world like started realizing over the course of like it becoming 2020 that social media had the impact to be very explosive, like to be very, like you could definitely create a chamber for yourself that only reinforced your opinion. Sri Lanka has one of the highest literacy rates in South Asia, and like it was kind of established that people aren't like unintelligent here. But when COVID happened, I started seeing people basically acting like the flat earthers that we've seen like in other places, right? Like people started becoming conspiracy theorists and believing in their conspiracy theories about everything. Like I'm sure there are reasons for this as well. Like there are legitimate concerns about drug development and the timeline it took and whatever. And then to this day, there are people who haven't gotten the vaccine and they think that they avoided a big, like, sort of like pacification ritual or something like that. Like they have like a big conspiracy about this, and it's all different conspiracies. And COVID was also the first time I heard about organizations like the FDA or the WHO, like in a real sense. Like before COVID, the only time I had heard about the World Health Organization was in like zombie movies. When you tell people that the neighbor they live next to has the potential to kill them, even if the neighbor doesn't want to kill them, people are going to be paranoid constantly. And paranoia was at an all-time high, and everyone stopped believing everyone. And I think that was really the turning point for the world, like when collapse started happening in the social fabric, because people stopped trusting the system would work because it had failed once. And then for our direct localization, it immediately manifested in like the government changing right after because of the financial crisis. And then Aragalaya happened. When Aragalaya happened, like people started overthrowing governments again. And like even that's continuing to 2026. Like Nepal had one like earlier this year. And that is consistently been sort of like the paradigm of the 20s. Like because the 2020s automatically created a public that was against government, like just generally. What do you think the effect of the internet was in like playing a part at like making fearmongering like the main thing it's good at?
This phenomena has happened throughout the history of the mankind, I guess.
Yeah.
But the internet is kind of making it worse by messaging this in a very rapid way. Because if it's like any other media, like you said, it would have been months or even years to take over the world. But the internet is kind of like a very fast society where you can just drop a message and everyone in the world can see it. So I think a part of it being like the COVID thing happening in the internet was a positive thing because it was a rapidly moving disease, but also the fear-mongering part was another thing because people can just say their opinions, whether they are correct or not, and they will also rapidly spread throughout the world. So it's like a media, like a physical media, but also it's a very fast media, I would say. Right. And because I said like this fear-mongering has happened previously, even like in the whole human history. Something I can a thing that came into my mind was MSP. It's not like a very rapid thing also.
Yeah.
But I got this into my mind because it's very important and it's such a niche thing because MSG means like monosodium glutamate we call it by the brand, which is
Ajinomoto, right?
Ajinomoto. So that's a brand that makes MSG. I think for most of my life, I have heard that MSG is really bad for us. MSG can cause cancer. That's the first thing that we hear as Sri Lankans. Because all the moms and aunties, they're like, do not take MSG, do not take food with MSG, you're going to get cancer. It's very interesting because of this one book that a person has written in 1968. There was an author that wrote a book about this MSG. And because of that, this scare of MSG happened. And with that, the name also came as Chinese restaurant syndrome, which is very interesting and which is very controversial as well. I would say this is very like a powerful symptom of fear mongering, because we didn't even know if it's true or not, if it's good to use or not, and we just believed in it as a country and as a world. Now that only because internet, now we know.
That's such an interesting point that you bring up, because the internet could have the exact opposite effect of fear mongering as well. Like it could undo fear mongering just as fast as it can do fear mongering, which is the interesting thing about the internet. I think the rapid, and another thing I could talk about in this sense is like, just like MSG, like I think something like Aragale would have never actually happened if the internet didn't exist. Like people couldn't do social mobility before like social media was the thing, because social media automatically makes like it's so incredibly unhealthy, but it makes it so much more easier to build a community that can mobilize. Like Aragale was one of the, like other than COVID, Aragale was something that I would have read in a book. Like it's not like it was very much a thing that I didn't even realize was possible. Like this is the sort of thing that you hear about, that it would have happened in after World War II, when people were unhappy with someone and they took, like it's kind of like saying, oh, people took down a wall, or like the Berlin Wall collapsed, something like that. Like it's basically the event on the scale of that, but people were experiencing, like we were there, I was there in the ground experiencing it as it was happening, and it was like a month-long process. And there are certainly people in society who were against it, but the thing is that they could have never stopped it, because the mobilization was such a gigantic torrent. It wasn't just the sheer amount of people, it was just like there were no leaders necessarily. That's kind of like the thing with these internet sort of like driven things, because it's like a hydra. You can't really cut off a head, because there's nothing you can, like the only way it dissolves is if it dissolves, if it like slowly loses traction, or people start thinking it's unimportant. The thing that happened with Aragale was the positive part of it was that it forced the government, who usually would have been perfectly fine not doing any action, to take rapid action against certain things, and to kind of like double check itself. Like I think a country in the scale of Sri Lanka, it was actually very effective. Like of course, like something like Aragale done in a country where the military is a lot more stronger would be a disaster. Like they could, if someone tried to do this in America, they would just get killed. Like it doesn't matter. The problem with the double-sided anonymous box of complaints is that like it's an anonymous box of complaints. No one knows who's saying this. So the whole, there's no context behind the complaint, so it doesn't make sense. So Aragale and to a lesser extent MSG is like an example of the internet overturning something like this. And a recent case of I think you mentioned this earlier as well, like with the hantavirus. Like this is also like the beginnings of something a little more fear-mongery. But I think people have like the finger on the pulse of like these kind of things now, where people don't get easily dragged into it. Like most people are, at least in our generation, don't get easily dragged into it, but our generation expects people to lie to us, so we double check. But like it's an interesting way of like trust collapsed, and I think it's irrevocably collapsed now. Like I think I don't think we'll ever trust one source going forward, like people. So it's
Yeah.
interesting, even with the hantavirus thing, even though it's significantly a more dangerous virus, I think it's there is some fear mongering happening there. I think to a bigger extent, the fear mongering these days is financial uncertainty and the job market, and like it's a very dispersed thing. It's not one singular fear. It's kind of like just general instability. Like it's kind of like the way you used to live, you can't live anymore. That's the fear, basically. It's not vaccine hesitancy. It's not a singular issue that you can ask an expert about and then be like, you can't just ask a doctor and say just say the expert says this, because there are no experts in the problem that we have currently. Like there are no experts that can tell us when like a war would end, or there are no experts that can tell us when the financial markets will like stabilize again. There's no one who can there are no experts in AI, despite what companies want people to believe. There are not that's not a thing. Like you can't be an expert in a field that is changing every 2 minutes. Like you can't really do that. Like embracing it is an interesting thing. Like I think this is just how the world is going to be now, which is an interesting thing that I think we have to accept to a certain degree. But I think it's important to talk about fear mongering as a concept, sort of like outside of the actual fear that it like generates within people. It doesn't the inciting incident has to be sort of studied heavily beforehand. Like the people need to know that this is possible. Like it's possible to like slowly give someone information and make them afraid of a certain thing.
Kind of thing that I think the media has always been like the main part of communication in the society. And after this physical media, internet came, and internet is like a catalyst that speeds up the process 1,000 times faster. But also, I'm kind of scared of what's for future. Like, what do we have for future? Like after internet, there will be something. So would that desensitize us more and more?
I mean, I don't really know. Of course, no one knows. I don't think, but it's very. I don't think that there will be anything after the internet in terms of a communication revolution, but I think I think there will be ways to utilize the internet, because I don't personally think. I think initially, when doing research for this video as well, I was looking at this statistic that basically said, let me read that out. So the human mind apparently is designed to hold about 150 to 200 names and individual stories and contexts in our brain at a single time. And like we are supposed to forget a lot of things, like to more than 200. We're supposed to forget and sort of like refresh our memory. And like memory isn't perfect. That what that means is anyone can get a lot of attention that their body isn't ready for, like that their brain can't comprehend. That is, I think, the primary problem with how people use the internet. It's too rapidly, like it gives you too much attention too fast and takes it away too fast. It almost functions as a drug, I think, because it's very helpful, but it's like it's only helpful if you severely control it. If everyone's famous, no one's famous. Because like if you know everybody on the planet, like this is not a thing that'll happen, but like if it becomes so that like you know everyone around you in some level on the internet, off the internet, whatever, if you can keep up with their lives without talking to them, eventually the attention economy will disintegrate, basically.
Yeah, and also like even the fearmongering, that subject is, I think, very important, because we always think about this when we are in the situation, and we always know about the situation, but I feel like this discussion was kind of like seeing the situation in another point of view, which is really important as like a society, and just to get to know what's happening with all of the parties, the society as well.
Yeah, okay, solid.